welcome to Brown Girl Book Lover. I'm Leslie Murray. This month we're doing Under the Radar, where we feature writers that you should be knowing about, but I felt went a little bit under the radar. We have Eskor, David Johnson, and we're talking about his book, Pay As You Go. Eskor, welcome to Brown Girl Book Lover.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. What is up? Boop, boop,
And also,
boop.
he's my Trinidadian brother, so you must love him.
Which we just discovered, which is good
Yes.
news.
Eskor, tell us about Pay As You Go.
Yeah, Pay As You Go. It's set in a big fictional city. So imagine if the mania of New York were dialed up to 11 or 12, as I like to say. And it's a modern epic adventure. Our young hero ventures out into the big wide world and he goes on a quest-like adventure to find the perfect apartment in which to live. And as you may imagine, if you ever had to look for an apartment in a big city, things do not go smoothly. Hijinks ensue, as I like to say. So we have 500 pages of adventure, which I hope is equal measures funny, moving, poignant, surprising, etc.
And what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, I'd say a number of things. Of course, is moving to New York in the aftermath of college and being a little bit, undecided in my direction, as I think many 21 or 22-year-olds find themselves. So kind of having to like navigate that urban landscape a little bit on my own. And then the title had come a little bit earlier than that, in that I was with a friend who had gotten all of his stuff while we were traveling, and he had got all of his stuff robbed just the night before, not from his person, but like from pickpockets, and it was including his passport. And I remember the next day walking with him to the embassy to get back his stuff, and he said, sometimes you just have to pay as you go, and you, something. I wish I could remember the entire phrase, but pay as you go was sandwiched right there in it. And the phrase kind of struck me, which I thought would make a good name for a short story. Something of the notion of having to continue to move forward no matter what it might just happen to you. So those were the two main things: moving to a big city and this notion that I'd had in my mind for some time of like you pay as you go. And eventually I began to hear the voice in my head that became Slide, our protagonist.
This is your first book, right?
It is.
And like, were you a writer before, or like, I'm just like intrigued about writers in general, but especially when you're coming from the Caribbean and like being in the arts is not a thing that you do, right? It's like you're a nurse, you're an engineer, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
Practical that you can get your W-2 form taxes from. So like, tell me about that like journey.
For me and for my family experience, my dad's a professor. My mom used to be scolded as a kid for always staying inside and reading instead of going outside to play. So reading, writing, love of language, love of the arts had always been something that I think was a little bit closer to home for our household. And I will give Trinidad and the Caribbean a little bit more credit. It is a richly artistic place. I think we don't have, as many of the resources and the structures that are in place, but like in terms of like coming up in school and my classmates and the things that we talk about and imagine, and I just know like so many like people who could paint so well, made such great music, good storytellers, good writers as well. Now, do all of them end up in the arts as a career? I think that's probably the distinguishing factor. But the raw material, the raw ingredients of what it is to be creatively expressive people, I think is in the Trinidad and in the Caribbean, by the boatload.
What are two takeaways you would like readers to know about your book?
Ooh, great question. I wish I'd known this beforehand. I might have spotted my answer. I think more than anything, it's an adventure and it's a story.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is this, going back to what I think what we were saying about storytelling being such a big part of I think our culture. Um, in that I think there are a lot of very good books out there, and some of them which I quite like, but that aren't as concerned about actively trying to entice, to entertain, to move you, and to very consciously like, hey, a story is being told, and I want readers to approach with that comfort in mind. The someone is here to take care of you per se, which I hope isn't too presumptive, but there is that kind of comfort that you do feel in a storytelling environment. If a master storyteller is holding the room, be it around a campfire or at a bar,
Mhm.
there's something a bit relieving in that. You're waiting to see what happens next, and it's supposed to be surprising, engaging, and it's the kind of story that I hope to have written. And then at the same time, it's a story that I think speaks a lot to our modern world and our modern circumstances. As I said, Sly's mission is to find somewhere to live, and a lot of the challenges that he runs into along the way, though they are often humorously wrought, they do point to real issues, real problems that do exist in our world right now, in a place like New York, where so many of the population do face housing struggles and challenges and paying a simple thing as the rent from month to month. These are real issues that, when writ large, can seem quite overwhelming, and that I think it's often the duty of art, and in my case, fiction, to try to speak towards in a way that hopefully is meaningful.
Eskor, David Johnson, thank you so much for joining us at Brown Girl Book Lover to talk a little bit about your book.
Thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate you having me.